Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to my lecture on motivation, the types of motivation and outcomes of those types. So let's get started. I just want to go over why this is important. I think it's good to know as graduate assistants and graduate teaching assistants what motivates our individual students, as it might inform what is important to them, what educational outcomes are important to them, and how they learn as well. A broad understanding of motivation, I think, is key for helping our students actively learn and understand the material, as well as encouraging a growth mindset can equal encouraging certain degrees of all types of motivation. So, extrinsic motivation. Students who prescribe more strongly to this type are likely to engage with the course because of outside rewards. So, examples of this are grades, recognition, scholarships, outside approval, and of course, the degree that they earn. And outcomes for students who, again, prescribe more strongly to this type typically can get through very challenging tasks, but it is more short term motivating. So, research has shown that once students receive that extrinsic reward, motivation for learning that material and understanding that material tends to take a dive. It's most helpful when in the form of informative feedback. Things like a paper, it can be really helpful if you give students very detailed, very informative feedback, both on what they did right and what they can improve on. With intrinsic motivation, students who prescribe more to this type are likely to engage with the course because of inner rewards. So, value of the activity, the class, or value of learning itself, learning just for the pleasure of learning. And outcomes for students who prescribe more strongly to this type, they typically can employ cognitive skills that result in deeper processing of material. So, therefore, it is longer term with the motivation. They are able to better understand and recall material. It also fosters conceptual understanding. So they can connect certain topics just discussed throughout the semester back to one another. They can connect things back to other courses that they took, fosters more creativity, involvement in the course, and a preference for challenge, which can also foster self determination. And with social motivation, students have goals pertaining to their social world. And even though this form is outside of academics, it does still exist in the classroom. So, this is where group work could be really beneficial for these students. And examples of this, obviously, are forming social relationships with their peers in that classroom. Outcomes for these students. Providing opportunities for students to form relationships can motivate them to continue to come to class and participate in class as well. It also makes students feel like a part of a larger community. So, this can be especially important for first year students, making them feel like they are a part of a larger classroom, a part of their major, or a part of the university itself can be really helpful. I also think it's important to talk about intelligence as it relates to motivation, and belief in one's intelligence can matter a lot. So, with the growth mindset, once again, if students have this, they believe that their intelligence can be developed and are therefore often motivated to do so. So, with topics or certain courses that are more challenging, these students are more likely to believe that even though it is challenging or they might not understand it at first, they can develop that understanding. In contrast, students with a fixed mindset often believe that having to work for that accomplishment or work to understand something displays a lack of ability, talent, and intelligence. So, with that in mind, how you word your feedback matters. And I think it can be really hard to word your feedback sometimes that encourages a growth mindset. So, examples of feedback that encourage that growth are things like, you worked really hard to understand this material. I can tell you did a great job because you worked so hard. Whereas feedback that might encourage more of a fixed mindset or you're really smart. So, just keep in mind just what your feedback can mean to the student that's reading it. Moving on, just pondering motivation, how can we best serve our students? Students are usually driven by both intrinsic and extrinsic factors. So I think it's important to remember that these factors don't exist on a single continuum, but two separate ones entirely. And so a balance is key in finding what motivates oneself. It can be a variety of different factors. So, for example, a student who is taking a course that they have to pass to graduate, or maybe a course that will help them get into graduate school, that would be an extrinsic motivation. But that same student could also really love learning about the material and be incredibly interested in it, also an intrinsic motivation. So, both types of rewards and motivations can be really helpful. And extrinsic rewards specifically can be helpful when used with other motivation approaches, especially when that intrinsic motivation is lacking. So, maybe with students who this is their first time interacting with a certain type of material, maybe for students who are new to college in general, those extrinsic rewards can be especially helpful there. So, thank you for coming to my lecture. I can't wait to see what we discuss.